independent filmmakers. They're in the struggle. They're trying to figure out where they're going to get the next dollar to make their project come to fruition. And the last thing you need is to be worried and get caught up in the minutia of it all.
Right.
Focus on that story. Get an iPhone if you need to. But the most important thing is to tell a good story.
Yeah. Hi, and welcome to Kelly, where we talk about life, your life and my life. And through Kelly, we hope to inspire. I have Duane Dixon on the show today. He is a writer, a producer, a director, an actor. You kind of do it all, as we have to do here in Atlanta. Yes. So we're going to talk about your project, The Gift and the Curse, and what that is about, what inspired it. It is a story that you wrote.
Yes.
So, and it is about a young man who's, I don't want to say dealing with homosexuality, because that's kind of wrong.
He just comes out as gay.
Right,
and
right.
I, as his father, have to deal with it. His mother has her own way of dealing with it as well. So yeah, we can get into that.
Okay, good. What inspired that?
Well, what inspired it was, I just think we are at a place in society right now where we need more positive messaging.
Yeah.
And the movie is ultimately about my son who comes out. His mother is uber religious, so she has all sorts of issues with that.
Yeah.
And you know, we let that unfold. And then, of course, me as his dad, it wasn't the way I had planned it. So I have my concerns, but I choose to work with him. And we go on this comedic and dramatic journey of trying to, quote unquote, cure him.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the story is ultimately about the fact that he's my son, and regardless of what his orientation is, I'm always going to be there for him.
And that's something that parents have to go through. I mean, dealing, if it's not homosexuality, it's something else.
That's right.
Because your kids never fall in line where you want them to
right.
fall in line. Or very few do. I don't know.
No, I get it.
Yeah, and I remember my mom saying about certain things. My mom had, there's 5 of us. Okay. Imagine that.
Wow. 5 girls?
No, there's 3 boys and 2 girls. Okay. If there were 5 girls, my parents would be dead. But you know, so we were all the time. One of us was in mischief or something. And my mother would always say, you know, I can choose to add conflict to this and try to control what you're doing. Right. Or, you know, at the end of the day, I can just be grateful that I have 5 very creative, headstrong kids that are, you know, we all turned out pretty, we didn't turn out perfect, but we turned out pretty decent.
And love you for who you are.
Yeah, yeah. And that's tough sometimes.
Yes, it is, but that's the message.
Right.
That's the message.
Love it. So you are on part 2.
Yes, The Gift and the Curse, part 2.
Okay.
That's right. And that's where the son came in. Part 1 was about me being diagnosed as having cancer. Oh, wow. So I'm always trying to do topical issues. Right. That's something that I pride myself on, and the company continues to try to, you know, talk about topical things that are going on in society. Cancer is one of the hot buttons on my list as well. My grandmother passed of cancer. There are just so many people today dying of cancer. And I wanted to bring attention to alternative treatments that are out there that are just really starting to come into play, whereas chemo and radiation were the go-to. Right. But those technologies are archaic. They've been out since the 40s. And now we've got immunotherapy and biotech therapies and things like that. And that's where the future is, and that's what my movie spoke to. Yeah, I love that. I worked for a psychologist for about 5 years, and he dealt with pain therapy. So it was people who had been in car accidents and things like that. But it was the main reason was because it changed those people's lives. I mean, if you go from being a perfectly functional person to being wheelchair bound, the dynamics that happens in the family and the anger and
all the things that you have to deal with. Your family is in a crisis.
There's a lot of emotion that goes with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, thank you for your gift.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's next for you?
What's next for me? Well, I made it very clear at our last red carpet premiere. No matter how much I implore the guys to come out. You know, I'm a man first, guys. I write from a male perspective. You know, for whatever reason, if it's not car chases and explosions, you know, they're at home. So 90% of my audience is female.
Okay.
And I made it clear to them at the last premiere. I said, ladies, it's not lost on me that you are supportive and you're my backbone. And for that, I'm going to start doing movies that speak directly to you and deal with, you know, issues that would resonate more with you.
Right.
So they were happy to hear that, and I've been working on some ideas now that I'm pretty excited about. So that's what's next for me. I'm just going to cater to my audience and stop trying to make something happen that clearly, for whatever reason, is not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you know that your direction is in the way. What you attract is the way. Yeah, and you can keep fighting that or whatever.
Keep fighting it or go with the flow.
Give to it.
Yeah, and that's what I've decided to do. So I've got some pretty interesting storylines that I'm working on right now that like I said, I'm real excited about.
Now, how did you get into filmmaking?
Oh, wow. When I did my first film, before I did my first film, I was out in LA. I had a meeting on Santa Monica Boulevard, and I was so excited. It was with some producers that were in a position to green light one of the projects that I had. And it didn't work out for me, right? So not only was it the disappointment of going out to LA in the Beverly Hills Hotel, you know, I'm calling home. I'm like, sweetheart, we've done it. I made it. You know, check in the good schools. You know, the kids need to be in good schools. And so that's where my mindset was. And to have that disappointment, I said, okay, something else needs to be done here, you know? And it just so happens that I went down the street to the Paramount lot, and I had a friend that worked at Paramount. And I'm talking to one of the security guards as I'm waiting for my friend to come out. And he's like, you know, we got into a conversation, and I told him about my meeting I just had. And he was like, man, that is fantastic. Do you know I've been wanting to do a movie for so long? I said, well, listen, it's not too late. You know, I said, just out of curiosity, how long have you been wanting to do it? 40 years.
What?
And when I heard that elderly gentleman tell me 40 years he's been wanting to do it, coupled with the disappointment that I had just experienced, or that I would later find out, you know, when I got home, they just, oh, we found somebody else. Or, you know, we went in a different direction is what they actually told me.
Right.
Coupled with that and hearing that old man's voice in my ear, 40 years I've been wanting to do it. I sat down at my Mac and I banged the first script out.
You said, today I'm doing it.
Yeah. I will not fall into that category.
Right.
So, that's when I wrote my first feature film. It was called Rendezvous.
Awesome.
And we premiered that here in Atlanta in 2011. We shut the theater down, had 3 and 4 theaters showing it at the same time. It was awesome.
Nice.
It was awesome. Nice. So, that was my my first foray into filmmaking.
I'm so glad that lined up for you. I have for you a gift, because you're a gift, and hopefully not a curse. Where do people get in touch with you or find your projects?
The best way to get in touch with me is through all social media platforms. I'm Duane Dixon 1.
Okay.
DUANE DIXON numeral 1.
Okay.
On Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. And, you know, one good gift deserves another, right?
Did you give me a gift?
know. I mean, you know.
No.
It's only fitting. I just
You
bought
know
my
what?
favorite. I bought you my favorite.
No, this is my favorite.
Is it really?
I promise. I have one of my mom's friends. She always has these in her house, and I sneak in and eat them all the time. So last Christmas, she got me a big bag of these. I will gain like 70 pounds. I'm glad you got a little one.
Yeah, I got a little bag.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Sure, absolutely.
Yay. Do you any shout outs you want to give to?
Yeah, I'd like to give some shout outs to my crew. Kenton Dixon, Matthias Centurion, Theron Barney, the cast. You know, when you're on the spot.
You can't.
Carlos and Antonio, and see, that's a shame.
Yes, here, take your.
Trinetta.
You can have your Oscar right there.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. Advice to give to an upcoming filmmaker.
The advice I would give is to not let perfection inhibit your progression. So often we're so concerned about the bits and the bytes, and am I using the prime lens, the ultra prime lens, or the 4K and the 8K? And I just think as filmmakers, we need to focus on telling stories.
Oh, yes.
That's where all of this starts and ends, the story. And everything else will sort of fall into play.
Yeah, and as you go along, you get better and better and better at your craft. The more you put in, the more you're going to get back.
Absolutely.
And so it's gonna happen for you if you stick with it.
Absolutely, and that's the most important thing. And what you just said has nothing to do with the best Sennheiser mic or whatever the case may be.
Right. Right.
You know,
and that is very true, because I will sit and watch a movie that has a good storyline, even if it's not perfectly beautiful.
Correct.
But even if it's perfectly beautiful but doesn't have a good storyline,
it hurts. It's painful.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell people, because most are independent filmmakers. They're in the struggle. They're trying to figure out where they're going to get the next dollar to make their project come to fruition. And the last thing you need is to be worried and get caught up in the minutia of it all.
Right.
Focus on that story. Get an iPhone if you need to. But the most important thing is to tell a good story.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Thank you for coming and gracing our audience.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
I love the Atlanta film community, and you guys are my heart.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Well, I so appreciate that. They say the best gift is the gift of inspiration, and I just want you to know that you are indeed an inspiration to everyone out there.
Thank you.
I mean, forget about Jay Leno. Yeah,
I'm right. On Kelly. We're taking it here.
I'm on Kelly. It doesn't get any better than this.
That's right. That's right. Guys, we hope that this segment educated and inspired you.